Today I'm joined by Helen Roy. Helen is a dear friend, a writer, and a contributing editor of The American Mind. Welcome, Helen.
Hey, Alex.
It's lovely to see you again after quite a short while. I mean, I saw you last week in person. We both attended and spoke at the National Conservatism Conference, NatCon 3. And it was really lovely to meet you and a lot of other people that I've only known off the internet in person, which, yeah, it was.
Same back at you. It's always so crazy to meet, your online friends IRL, but I really enjoy it and think it's pretty important too.
Yeah, it was an unreasonable amount of fun, and I feel like we kind of congealed pretty well as a group, even though we were just kind of online weirdos, very online weirdos who met in
Yeah.
person. So yeah, it is sometimes nice to meet your heroes. So I can only recommend it. Yeah, I feel like we've kind of had what they call convergent evolution. I feel like we had similar life paths, you and me, and we've also have had children at kind of
The same
I'm
time.
not going to guess your age, but at a similar life stage.
Mhm,
And you
mhm.
have more children than I have. You have two wonderful children, and I have one child, kind of in between your children,
Yes,
just as
yes.
a temporal stage. And I mean, for me, it's been an insane. I'm not going to call it a journey, but it's been an insane step change in how I've related to myself, to the world, and I just wondered, like, how do you feel that motherhood changed you?
Oh, wow. What an amazing question. Um, oh, man, it's such a confrontation to, your narcissism. I think the sort of narcissism that we all kind of live in and maybe don't wanna admit that we do, most of our lives. And yeah, I mean, what everybody says is true. Uh, the sacrifice, the daily sacrifice, which I don't like to complain about. I really don't. I think that there's way too much, and we can talk about this too. There's, on like mom TikTok and stuff, there's just so much whining about mom life. But but yeah, I think that the biggest change for me has just been this you just confrontation with my own selfishness, I think. As hard as that is to admit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely echo that. It's I don't know if it's almost like Buddhism in a way. Like it's kind of like a Zen practice to be just thrust into so much physical labor, in
Mm.
every sense of the word once you have a child, and to be so concerned with something outside of yourself that it just completely obliterates any of that, like, you put it very well, essentially narcissism that we've been groomed to live in,
Yeah.
or at least maybe not groomed to live in, but it's been allowed to flourish in a way that
Yeah.
I don't think any other generation has had the opportunity to live so narcissistically, to let every narcissistic impulse just
Great.
bloom. And I'm definitely, very much at fault with that. Um, but yeah, it's been a relief. I mean, for me, it really has been. It really has been a relief to almost be relieved of almost, a burden of the self. And letting myself go in the most beautiful of ways, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
No.
totally, totally. Yeah, uh, I think, a lot of I think a woman's pride is tied up in her appearance, and I know this isn't what you meant by, like, letting
No,
yourself
no,
go, but for
I meant that as well in a way because, this is an important thing, and, I have to admit, I mean, I've struggled with the whole appearance thing after baby. I've
same.
had a baby quite late in life, and, you know, I imagine I would have, bounced back a bit easier if I was younger, maybe not. But yeah, it's been harder than I thought. My usual methods did not work.
Yes.
So I'm having to appeal to more and more draconian measures, and yeah, that's what it is.
Same here, that's sort of what I was getting at is, like, this letting yourself go thing. I've totally I mean, physically, I can kind of, like, look at myself and be like, well, you know what? This body has carried multiple children, and who cares that it doesn't? I don't know. Hotness is a bit overrated anyway at this point in life, and I would have been probably cripplingly insecure about about certain things years ago that now, um, yeah, it is. I've been freed to sort of appreciate in a new way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, I mean, I can't say I'm not insecure about it, but at the same time, I've got like 99 problems in the
Right.
same one, to be honest. I mean, you know,
Truly,
I'm
truly.
thinking about it, and you know, I'm working towards my goals, obviously, but um, there is a, you know, an extremely important emotional you know, situation in my home that I have to tend to first, and yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's great in that way. To be honest, just being a woman on the internet hasn't, you know, it's you know, it would have been a much chiller transition if I wasn't a public person. But
Yes.
yeah, it has its ups and downs, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but anyway, I think that's a, you know, a very similar path that you've trodden. Um, also want to ask you about traditional Catholicism, because I feel like that's kind of a space that you're in, as far as I understand. Have you grown up in traditional Catholicism? Is that something that
Oh, absolutely not. No, no. I so I can't consider myself a trad calf, even though I attend the Latin Mass and I'm part of a traditional Latin Mass community, and I um, love the liturgy. I really can't honestly, like, unironically call myself a trad calf. I'm really much more, as I say in my bio, of a bad Catholic. Um, I was not baptized until I was like, so here, okay, I guess I should begin at the beginning. My parents were both raised Catholic, but not, I'll just say they had their issues with the institution. And, hey, I won't comment on that, but, they baptized me. We weren't really in catechesis until later. I had some adopted grandparents who, uh brought us to catechism. And so we were confirmed when we were in my brother and I in high school, but, um, if you were, like, born in the '90s, you basically weren't catechized even if you were. Um, and I won't get into the whole, like, Novus Ordo Vatican II controversy when it has to do with the church, but I'll just say that, um, there's been a real devitalization of Catholic education, and the consequence of that is a really lukewarm faith. And so, when we were coming up, it just, the knowledge wasn't there, and, the seriousness wasn't there. And so, I think a lot of people fall away when if you perceive that somebody is telling you something and that they're not serious about what they're saying, there's no reason to believe them. And I think I sort of fell into that trap, um, and was, swept up in the Christopher Hitchens sort of YouTube moment, Sam Harris type stuff. And that was, right around the time I was, like, going to college, and so I was a self-professed, like, seeker. I would maybe call myself culturally Catholic, but not, um, obviously not serious, and not it meant nothing. That the identity meant nothing. I was much more of an agnostic, and so, um, it wasn't until I had a bit of a political conversion, I would say, that, precipitated eventually, a religious conversion. And, ideally, it would work the other way around, but, yeah, being as it were, that's what happened, and, um, so, being caught up in, when I say caught up in, I don't even mean that I was necessarily on board with, but, um, I, like so many people, was interested in the Trump moment, interested in what was happening and what people in a derogatory way will say call alt-right. Um, these dissident ideas, these subversive ideas, were really appealing to me, and appealing basically just precisely because they were verboten. So I started to think about things a little bit differently, reconsider my priors, and that eventually, that process eventually led me to reconsider my sort of agnostic stance on God, and then really once you start going down that rabbit hole, um, I think most people reach the church. So
Yeah.
that's what happened. Sorry, that was a bit of a long story, a little circuitous, but yeah.
No, no, I mean, you're not the only one. You're
Yeah,
not
I
alone
know.
in
I mean,
your,
at this point, it's boring. Like everybody, this is what happened to everybody, right? There
yeah,
was
yeah.
something really strange about the spirit of 2015. There was something in the air.
Yeah, yeah, even early in that, I mean, the 4 Horsemen was even more interesting to me. The Trump moment, and I was definitely pro-Trump, and I kinda got it, but it was, I mean, like, as someone who was far away, it really even then, it wasn't that you were, caught up so much in US politics. I feel like for the space that I was in, just like new atheism was much bigger than Trump. And it was much
Mhm.
earlier, at least for me, because I feel
Oh,
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah. It was more
slightly
like
sli
2012 for me, that when I was interested in that stuff. The
yeah,
Trump stuff
yeah.
came later, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's kind of the same for me. I mean, my parents were Catholic as well, but they had this kind of cynical view of the church a little bit. They were all about, the community, and we go to church because of the community, and it's good to show up because people see you and stuff like that. And I thought that, my God, they couldn't even imagine anything more cynical or more cold. I mean, do you even believe what these people are saying? And then I was confronted with people that I knew were, kind of more the intellectual wing of the church, like, our the priest and people like that who were just essentially not very bright people. You could tell from what they're saying, and I'm like, okay, so this should be kind of an intellectual mentor for me that's going to explain how the world works to me. Um, no, you're not qualified. I'm sorry, my dude. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I was also like 13, 14 years old, so
So there
just
might have been a little bit of pride at play, but
yeah,
but there's
exactly. Oh,
actually really something to that. I mean, it's like the tragedy of the modern homily, um, and that so many priests have their prime aim has been to be entertaining, to entertain, because that's what we sort of perceive that a modern audience wants. But in reality, we are totally bombarded by constant, ceaseless entertainment. And I found an amazing reprieve in the quiet reverence of the Latin Mass. So yeah, actually, that's sort of a part of that story that I didn't include. Like, there was like this intellectual, I guess, openness that was triggered by this political change, but I didn't actually become like a, trad cath. And like I say, I hesitate to use that term without irony, um, but really, like, what really led me into that was actually going to the mass and um, confronting for the first time in my life this sort of sublime beauty and, oh man, and like I said, quiet reverence and mystery. Um, it was profoundly touching. I remember after my first Latin mass, I went to a friend's. It was she and her now husband were doing a really special rite of engagement that people don't do anymore. This is like, but when you get engaged in the traditional church, there's this rite of engagement where you sort of make proto vows, to have have a fruitful and faithful courtship or, engagement. And I remember going and, just being looking around at all of these women in mantillas with 7 children, and, it was, kids were crying and all that. It wasn't like these kids were perfectly behaved or anything like that, but, like, people were, like, really serene and serious, but not in an intimidating way, just sort of like an otherworldly way, I guess. And that's another thing that I felt when I first went to the Latin Mass was the sense that, oh, these people really mean what they're saying. Oh, these people, yeah, like there is a certain integrity about how these people were acting in the world and what I knew that they believe. And that's, when you go to a Novus Ordo, often you'll like see, boomers in cutoffs and flip flops and their daughters in what 3 decades ago we would identify as uh, prostitute wearing, um, and so there's always like a little bit of dissonance. It's a bit jarring, to be in the house of God, dressed like you're in the world, and sort of even down to the way that people sort of act in church, and that they just have this sort of lackluster, unfocused, like glazed over eyes in the modern church. I think that's common. And then, yeah, I was just so touched by what I saw. It was really an aesthetic experience primarily.
Yeah. I think that's something that people don't understand about ritual, that you can still go through the motions with some fractions of ritual, but that in the core essence of the ritual, and why you have to play it as a ritual, why you have to stick to the script that is there and has been there for the longest time, is because there is that aesthetic experience kind of in the middle of the ritual. And by simplifying it, by stripping it, by adding, entertainment to the whole thing, that you're essentially just throwing to the winds the actual purpose of the thing, that is mysterious. Like you said, it's not you don't know what it is about the thing that you're doing that actually conveys the importance of it, that actually gives you the effect, or, the experience that you're looking for, or, that's there for you to find. And I feel like that's probably also what you saw in the church when you were growing up, and that's what I saw. I mean, definitely saw a lot of cynicism and a lot of, almost anti-intellectualism. Like it really wasn't any, um, people would just kind of cuss you out if you would be asking questions, and that was for me just felt really like, ugh,
Yeah.
this is not my group.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I also grew up in the American South, so there is this broader culture that was more like, evangelical, Southern Baptist, sort of, um, I don't
We've got
know,
that here as well. You'd be surprised. We've got a lot
Oh,
of
really? Wow.
baptism, yeah, from the US. Quite
Oh,
interesting.
that makes sense, I guess the communist, like, missionaries.
Missionaries, yeah. The
Yeah,
Baptists were very successful. Mormons a little bit, though didn't catch on, but Baptists are huge here. They've got their own
wow.
universities, a lot of funding from the US. It's quite interesting.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
that sort of that I feel like that, sect has a different spirit, and, sometimes, I could feel the Catholic Church, I guess, relenting under that pressure and sort of getting into, like, vacation Bible school tier, like, corny stuff. And, I don't know. It was always even as a kid, I just like, it was so cringe.
But you know what's interesting? I think the cringe factor is a huge selling point here, because it's cringe to Americans, but it's American to us. And American is not cringe. So we
Ah.
have, the Christian rock, We've got, the like all the stuff that you see in like, the mega churches we have here on a small scale. And even like my niece, she goes to the Baptist school, like I don't know, it's not primary school, it's like I don't know, middle school. And because it's the best one, it has the most
Wow.
funding, has the strictest teachers, which is important, obviously, because if you go to public school here, it's pretty much like public school in the US. It's like
Mm.
it's wild. Not exactly the same, if you
Yeah.
understand what I mean, but it's
Yeah.
kind of wild, So
Yeah, they're not actively trying to remove her breast.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, a few things are different, but it's still like, like my husband, he went to an all boys school in New Zealand, which is also kind of, I think, Anglican affiliated, religious heavy, very strict, uniforms and everything. And he just, there's a high school right next to where we live, like the high school that I went to actually. And the kids are all smoking outside of the school and they're, wearing their uniforms, but underneath there's like, I don't know, a slutty nurse outfit or something like so he's like, "Why are these kids instantly expelled? What is going on here?"
Oh, that's so
So,
funny.
yeah, that's this is a public high school. It's actually a fancier of the public high schools. It's hard to get in, but it's a public high school, and that's kind of what happens at the confessional high schools here. They're private, no slutty nurse outfit, no
Mm.
smoking in front of the school. Maybe in the back of the school they're smoking, but no, not in front of the school. So yeah, a little bit more, I don't know, this is decorum maybe.
Okay, okay, okay. When do people typically start smoking in Romania? As a
Well,
former chain smoker, I'm curious.
well, not in kindergarten. That's what I can say. You're waiting
Sometime
until
between
after
kindergarten and
kindergarten.
college.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely primary school. Has to be primary school. Maybe like 11, 12, probably most common. Like my mom started at 12 and she smoked, her whole life. Yeah. 2 packs a
Wow.
day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she
Goodness
really she
gracious.
really liked that. But, yeah, it's very common here. All my childhood friends smoked. I didn't smoke because I thought it was cringe because it was too common everywhere.
Mm.
I wanted to be
Mm.
different. And I
Alex the
did
contrarian.
yeah, of course. As atheist, feminist, not smoking in this, patriarchal religious smokers den. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah, but I did smoke when I moved to London because I don't
Mm.
know, I was just getting stressed out by all the girl bossery, and I was like, I need something. I need
Aw,
something to
yes,
take
you need an
take the
outlet.
edge off. Yeah.
Well, the contrarian in me is what led me to smoking probably
Really?
because right, because in America, it's such a puritanical sort of like they've really made it because of, I think the public health policy and everything, and also our Puritan roots, really made it into like a moral, issue, smoking, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Just thinking about how my thinking goes, I'd probably be smoking in the US right now. Just
Yeah,
to
yeah.
just thinking about, the game theory of me being a contrarian, yeah, I'd be a smoker.
Yes,
But
yes.
yeah, here in Romania, no, I think it's yeah, no, I don't wanna be like
Okay.
everyone else. It's been, an interesting, kinda transition to becoming a mom and a wife especially, 'cause this is another thing I want to talk to you about, is
Mm.
just kind of having a relatively traditional household in non-traditional time. Um, and I see these tensions in, people that I know and, people who are either trying to have more traditional, arrangement or people who just trying to, keep their marriage together. There are all sorts of tensions about kind of splitting tasks, keeping polarity between the sexes. Where does the money come from? All sorts of things like that. How have you found this in your marriage? Obviously, it, reveal as much as you can, but just if there were any challenges that you can kind of expound on, that'd be an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think that, part of the reason why I really am and then I get a little bit cheesy about stuff like this, so everybody will have to just forgive the sentimentality for a second, but
No, 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 please. We're missing a lot of sentimentality on this podcast.
Well, I am very lucky because I married a man who I really am head over heels, in love with and who is not, ideological. He is concerned he's, rather, deeply practical and, concerned with, um, yeah, what works. I mean, we're a team. We're not equal. I don't like the term equal. I don't like this whole well, the whole thing about equality is that it's been totally, corrupted by, uh, neoliberal philosophy, but so I wouldn't so I resist, like, calling our arrangement equal. It just simply is we are a team, and we do what it takes to make things work in a way that is conducive to everyone's happiness. And he makes the money, and I watch our babies, and but he also acknowledges that it's actually, much easier to work with numbers all day than it is to be eye to eye with a toddler all day. And so, when he comes home, he takes over and gives me a second, and, that feels right. And, especially when I was pregnant and, nursing and all of that, he's so helpful and so generous with me and considerate of me. So, I feel taken care of. Um, I don't I don't have advice for people other than I think that they should just do what works. And this is just sort of I don't know, it almost sounds like I almost sound like a lib saying this, like there's no right way. But that is what works for us. And it is fairly traditional. But it's not we don't make ourselves slaves uh to any sort of concept of masculinity or femininity or any sort of idea that particular tasks are inherently tied to either one of those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think that, there would be maybe a little bit of a relationship might get a little bit off kilter if you were the main breadwinner and he would be tasked with taking care of the babies, or how would you split tasks? I mean, if
Yeah.
tomorrow you became like a huge public intellectual, Jordan Peterson of women,
Oh,
you now
golly.
are a multimillionaire, touring the world,
Right, right. I
dispensing
pro
advice.
I probably wouldn't, um, for many reasons, and even if it came to me, I don't know, I think I would struggle with that. My sort of what I do is interesting to me now and manageable for now, and I sort of resist, I don't know, I sort of resist that kind of success. Whatever, that's sort of a personal thing, I won't get into that, but, okay, good question. If I were the main breadwinner, would it throw a wrench in things? I don't know. I think, maybe I think that my husband enjoys providing for us and protecting us and being the sort of public, um, force in the family. I don't like to leave the house, so so he does that. I don't know if I were the person who did that. I don't think he would be. He's just so confident. It's hard to imagine that he would ever feel emasculated. Um, I think I would have more of an issue with not being around the babies and him and not cooking. I love cooking, you know? Gosh, that's such a non-answer. Sorry.
No, no. I think, I might have just, hit on someone who just has the perfect arrangement. Just
Yeah, God, man.
no strange tensions, no, shadow self to, psychoanalyze or anything. So, I'm happy for you, but it
Well,
makes for
you've
terrible
met
podcasting. I'm just
I
kidding.
know, I'm sorry. No, it's true,
No,
I'm
no, no,
like,
no, no.
I don't mean to humble brag here. You've met
No,
my husband, though, you know him, and
I've
he's
met
like,
your husband. I know what you mean. You guys are made for each other. I really have to say that's
"Oh,
a wonderful, match made in heaven. And as far as I know, it's been made on Bumble. Or
yes, yes, we did meet on
yeah,
Bumble. We
see,
did meet
the
on Bumble."
algorithm does deliver sometimes. So
Isn't that
yeah,
wild?
quite
Yeah.
nice.
I
The
I think
feminist path.
actually yes. I think our struggles sort of happened earlier on maybe, like, because we were both having this sort of political religious conversion, reversion situation together, and I think ironing out some of those kinks, you know, probably just happened earlier on. I don't know. We both had to sort of forgive each other and be, uh, feel badly about who we'd been, before we saw the light, and now that we have, I'm just pretty grateful that by the grace of God, um, I feel like I've been able to come into contact with something that's really true. So,
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, I feel the same about my marriage. Yeah, it's yeah, just a total um yeah, it's grace, and I'm
mhm,
incredibly happy about my healthy baby and just, my peaceful marriage and everything's, going great. Yeah, life isn't perfect. Many many things have gone wrong, but my marriage is just it's the rock, and it's, yeah,
yeah,
just important.
totally. I almost feel like sometimes we're made to feel like marriage must be super hard,
Yeah.
or that it must be this I don't know, just the way that it's not just the way that it's portrayed in, like, the liberal media, which is like, oh, like, incompetent, bumbling father, idiot, and,
Mhm.
like, nagging, bitch mom. It's also, like, the way that even Christian people will talk about it is, like, this cross that you have to bear. Um, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's just, like, people need to give themselves permission to experience joy and to recognize goodness and beauty and love it and appreciate it,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the cross part, I feel, almost inevitably shows up eventually. I mean, there are
for
always,
sure.
tough tough patches that you kinda have to navigate together, and I feel like that portrayal of it as, a cross you need to bear is for those moments when people want to give up and they're like, "No, no, 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 it's a cross type thing, okay? You need to
Yeah,
bear it."
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Good
So,
point, good point, good
yeah, yeah,
point.
just,
And to be clear, like, nobody's marriage is perfect, as you've said, it's not,
yeah,
um
except for yours, obviously.
oh, yeah.
Have to admit, that's pretty
No,
good.
no, 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 definitely not, definitely not, definitely not. Yeah, but yeah. But all in all, it's such a gift to find a good person that you can, really be on a team with and, be at each other's side and face the world and, you know, it's kind of part of the reason why I do what I do and why I'm interested in what I'm interested in is because I spent so much time as a younger woman just totally, captured by bad ideology and, totally, mm, uh, I don't know, consumed by the pain of the consequence of the decisions I was making. And, uh, and I just want I wish somebody could have told my younger self it doesn't have to be this way, and, and and maybe offered a little hope in that way that, if you can turn things around, like, things will get better and, like, life is really beautiful and it can be. So, yeah, it's too good of news not to share.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a like I said, it's a similar experience, and Yeah. I think it's also I don't wanna lay blame on our parents because, they've had their own crosses to bear in many ways, but,
Mhm.
it does feel like a kinda generational thing as well. Well, for me at least, when I was growing up, I was extremely cynical about the world. Just seeing, this just immense level of conflict and issues and, divorce and all sorts of things that was happening around me, and it just felt like quite, I don't know, dystopian what lay ahead if I were to get married. It was just all, cheating and just, violence and things like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, why even contemplate this? Why even, produce children? Who would want to, further the cycle of trauma or whatever
Yeah.
or liberal compatriots call it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just didn't make any sense for me. So, it took a long while to get in tune with the positive things in the world and seeing, just kind of brute forcing myself into positive possibility mentally to actually be
Totally.
able to, yeah, to even imagine that this could be a good idea.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, is it just me, or did so many boomers end up in just really bad marriages?
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm not even necessarily talking about my parents, like, I just like, as a generation, like, man, so many millennials walked away from that thinking the same thing. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see it just in past generations. Like my grandparents had I mean, wonderful. There's a question of how much they tolerated of each other, and how much one should tolerate because there was even domestic violence. There was even people weren't like sparkling conversationalists all the time. My grandpa was like just a curmudgeonly guy who was just destroyed by laboring in the mines, and
my goodness.
he wasn't like a you know just a charming dude. He would just come home, he was hungry, he wanted to eat, then he slept, then he went back to the mines. It wasn't like what an incredible life. But it wasn't even an option. I feel like once the options were on the table and it was all about, designing your life, and I feel like my parents' generation was the first one to design their lives, even here under, communist Romania, the concept of designing your life was really big. They designed it and they failed. A very big flop in terms of life design. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's always a question. I mean, I think the liberals might say, "Oh, okay, this is the your grandparents put up with so much and they should have just yeah, should have designed their life a bit harder." But it really does feel to me like if you in the sum total of things, um much more suffering happened under the self-created generation, not the one that kind of just went through the motions and got on with it.
right, yeah. That really gets back to the, what you were talking what the first question you asked me is, yeah, how has motherhood changed you? Well, yes, it's been a confrontation with my selfishness because it's this, implication of new burdens, um, or imposition rather of new burdens, but, um, the happiness that arises um, from these new boundaries and these new burdens and these new responsibilities is unlike anything that I've ever experienced before. So it's really strange to me how that, this myth of infinite choice has just collapsed. And the myth of infinite choice being that, the potential and of infinite choice uh, being ultimately conducive to happiness. That's what sort of collapsed under my new life paradigm, um, because I am happier now than I have ever been in my life, um, and I am responsible for more now than I have ever been in my life, and I am more limited now than I have ever been in my life. So I don't have infinite choices anymore, but I don't want them.
Yes, I think even just a perspective on, like you call it happiness, but it's so much broader than that. I feel like a lot of times when, people talk about happiness, how to, create happiness, the pursuit of happiness, it's always kind of this utilitarian frame where,
Mm,
you get good feels from
mhm,
stuff like
mhm.
that. But it just feels like I don't feel like I've getting good feels from my marriage necessarily. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I have to like dig down into ancient Greece to find words to describe my feeling. It's like I don't
Eudaimonia,
know
yes.
exactly. It's eudaimonia. It's like I don't know. It's joy. It's contentedness. It's just being at one with how things should be. Just finding your place in the world. It just feels like that. It's like falling away of things that drag me down. Just a
Right.
lightness of knowing that this is how things should be. They are this way, and you know it's kind of a pressure release.
Yes, totally, totally. We imagine removing every, um, I don't know, relational limitation or imposition will free us to be happy, and in reality, like, that, um, formality is I said this on Twitter this week. I was talking about a royal family with some people. It was like, yeah, formality is the institution of respect. So, like, uh, these boundaries, these formalities, these traditions are are built to sort of carry those intangibles forward, and to for people to communicate those intangibles to each other. Because otherwise, you just have to. I mean, how else do you express respect or love, or um, I don't know. I feel like this is kind of interesting. Like, we're so enamored in the United States with saying "I love you." Like, it's this whole thing on things like the show, like shows like The Bachelor. Is that like this crucial box that you have to check in order to get the ring? Is say, and it's always in like these weird progressions too. It's like, I'm in the process of falling in love with you. I'm falling in love with you. I'm in love with you. But I feel like that happens, and it's this sort of pseudo formalization of like, it's like a new institution that's being created on TV, because things like love need something to carry them. Like, they need a sort of formal uh, vehicle, I guess. So, yeah, and a deeper one would be a deeper vehicle for love would be, uh, 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 as a homemaker, you cook a meal that that one of your kids really loves, and you spend all day doing it, and that's a sort of formal action that communicates love. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get what you mean. I feel like um just the way we act in the world and the constraints that surround that action, and like you said, kind of the formalities around that are just kind of yeah channels that ensure that we express these things right. I don't know if this makes sense, but
Yes.
it's just
Yeah, that's
like
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah, it's there's a lot of, the idea that if you free yourself from all of these conventions, you can act authentically and your authentic self will know how to connect with other authentic selves and, just a direct way. It just doesn't happen like that because, we form ourselves in relation to other people and in relation to the structures around us. A person who's kind of denuded of all of these structures isn't like purer or more direct or more powerful or more has more agency. You have less agency because you're
Mhm.
you're at the mercy of the winds. You know, you're constantly looking for something to anchor yourself in because you don't have that security coming from inside you because you don't base yourself on knowing the language of the world. All these formalities are essentially a language in which the self can express itself. You're
Yes.
illiterate. That's what you are. You're just like walking
Totally.
around,
Oh my gosh.
rudderless, anchorless, and that's essentially,
And
what's
deaf and
happening with
mute.
people. Exactly. And you're scared and anxious and you're anchoring yourself to, the first flashing light that you see, whatever thing is that's, nice and bright and attracts, maybe your lesser urges because that's, that's what we see around us. People being drawn into, alcoholism, gambling, all sorts of more interesting synthetic drugs. There are a lot of flashing lights around us for these rudderless beings to attach themselves. And if you don't speak the language of the world, how are you going to navigate your way out of situations where it's just the highest bidder is going to get your soul? And it's really it's a depressing sight to see, because it's not like these people are sinners. It's just they don't know what they don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think this is why people are so attracted to traditionalism in all its forms now, um, because they understand tradition and tradition as an act of love um, that connects generations to one another, and really the intentional destruction of this tradition as an act of hatred. Um, but yeah, like I mean, we can go back to the royal family for just a moment. Like all of these like people, smaller Republicans will sort of wonder, well, what is the point of all of these motions and all of these, why can't Harry wear his uniform or whatever it is? And it's like, well, no, because there are rules. There are rules that keep an order um, that allow people to the order is what allows people to make sense of the world. And um, yeah, and so basically, what people don't understand about Meghan Markle and the problem of Meghan Markle is not just that they're like, oh, she's like flipping the monarchy on its head, like that's so cool. It's like, no, what she's doing is an act of hate. She's destroying something that's beautiful for her own sake, or she's attempting to, right? And you wonder why there aren't any positive feelings between her and like Prince William. And it's like, well, because all of these things that has sort of branded as acts of liberation are actually personal attacks on them. It's kind of funny. Like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that is what you've just said, is that these sort of lines between um, just that, yeah, the lines between the formal institutions of respect and formal like etiquette, let's just say, and personal feeling. Like etiquette is what protects personal feeling, right? Like these institutions, these structures for human behavior are what protect people's hearts ultimately.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something really deep there. Just because, I mean, I've noticed that in my own just life, in terms of having weak boundaries. It's interesting. I mean, it's just like a quirk of how I grew up. I don't have very strict boundaries. People, it's very hard to get close to people. You'd think, someone with weak boundaries would, be surrounded by friends and stuff like that. It gets very strange very fast if you have weak boundaries with people, because if you can't, if you don't have that structure around yourself where, okay, this is where I end and you begin, um, relationships overwhelm you very fast, and then you kind of have to cut them off at a certain point and say, okay, no, this has gone absolutely crazy. I don't even know how we got to this point. I have to say, no, I don't want to ever see you again, because it's just because you haven't negotiated that structure, and you don't know, like I said, where you end and the other person begins, and even the other person doesn't know, how far can they take it. And I
Right.
feel like this is it's not just me. I mean, I've noticed this in friends of mine and people who've grown up. I grew up kind of like a weed. No one paid me any mind, but I feel like it's kind of a generational thing as well. Just and this is just like at a personal level, but at a societal level, that's essentially what these formalities are. What social structures are. It just has it's a blueprint of how everyone relates to everyone and what you can expect from the other person. And when that falls away, no one knows how to relate to anyone, because you don't know what blueprint they're running. Is there even a blueprint? Do they even have any sort of regulation as to how to interact with you? What language even are they speaking? I mean, if you're in a big,
Right.
there's it's essentially the Tower of Babel, but for every dimension of a person. You know?
Yes, totally. Yeah. And yeah, it reminds me of something I wanted to say earlier too about meeting your online friends IRL, is that there is this sort of language, like there for people in our sort of world, we've developed our own language of memes and our own sort of structures of. It's not really our own structures of meaning, but we're all sort of getting at social ideals together. And so I feel more at ease with people like you, like who speak my language in a sense, than I do often with people I've known for a long time, but we're friendships were sort of a matter of happenstance. So
Yeah, you know what to expect, from me because I'm dealing with the same kind of codes of conduct as you
yeah,
are. But yeah, it is interesting, and I agree. It's surprisingly easy to act natural among people. I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing because, to be honest, it's been a struggle to kind of reintegrate with people that I used to be very good friends with, and it's
right.
also hard to kinda translate, okay, what is it that you're doing? So what type of, thing is this? So I also don't wanna draw them in too much because then they'd be like, "Okay, so who is Thomas 777 and why is he wearing, like, Nazi regalia?" And, like, what exactly are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah.
They asked me, like, "What is it that you're doing?" And I mean, for people who don't even understand the concept of a podcast, or at least wouldn't understand, I would have to explain a podcast before they could even understand what I'm saying. I just say I write for magazines, and that usually
Same. Hey, that's
is
what I say too.
it's
I'm
that
a writer.
exactly, yeah. But sometimes they ask, like, "So what books have you written?" I'm like, "Oh," and
You
I'm
don't
not
want to
at book
know.
level yet,
Yeah.
but working on it. Yeah, it's an interesting, thing to and that's why I say I'm not saying that this is, the everything of life, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about these domains and, thinking about stuff that, you also think about, um, and it is easier to connect with people from the space, I have to say. But yeah, I don't know, how have you found, life in meat space?
Oh gosh. Oh well, you know what? I love life in meat space. In my Where I live now, we moved somewhere where there's a very strong traditional Catholic community, and I have a wonderful group of friends who I can be totally, myself and and Alex Jones post in the mom chat, and it's all good. um, yeah, they're all woke on seed oils. I mean, what more could you ask of your mommy friends?
Oh, man. Where I mean, I'm not gonna ask for it, and I'm not gonna, dox
You
you,
should
but,
move
like,
here.
yeah, text me where it is. I mean, to be honest, the thing is, like, here, if you want to be kinda high status, and that's kind of people that I went to high school with, I went to kind of the more it wasn't private high school, it was public high school, but, higher level, the
Mhm.
smarty pants kids went there. They're all in on, the narrative, because that's very high status here. So whenever I want to like hang out with people kind of from my generation or, who are up to things, maybe, running a business or stuff like that. Yeah, they're all very woke on many things. And,
Oh
their
my
friends
gosh.
crying about, I don't know, just the most retarded things, BLM people like this. There are no black people here.
Yeah. What are you talking
What are
about?
you talking about? So
You
yeah.
sent didn't you send like there was like a George Floyd mural or
The
something in rural Romania?
yeah, there was, like, I don't know, there's just even, like, street tags, people, I don't know, writing about
Oh
George
my
Floyd and,
gosh.
I don't know, it's just a symbol, it's a symbol for a certain type of status seeking, so,
Yes.
it's sad because these are really smart people, the people that you'd want to hang out with because they're funny and interesting and, they'd be much more interesting if they just stop it with this
Yes.
bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I hate to be anti midwit because I'm sure like we have the same IQ, and So I guess I don't hate to be anti-midwit. I don't know, but yeah, I agree. It's like these people who are, you know, operating on these levels, and they've got great jobs, and they're like totally solid people, responsible, high executive function. Um, and you know, it's almost in any normal society, it would be a virtue to strive for social consensus. But it's this sort of just totally oppressive careerist thing that yeah, it does make meat space hard.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, it's kind of heartening as well to see how it's just kind of a coat that they put on for status seeking. It's not that they consciously do this. They obviously don't realize that this is what they're doing, but they believe these things, but because these are the things that need to be believed. Because I don't know, whatever influencers that they're watching in the West, believe these things or post about
Mhm.
prison reform and abortions in Alabama or whatever
Oh,
was
jeez.
on the day. And then they kind of get emotionally invested because that's the thing to do. And I'm sure to be honest, I'm sure I'm not a stranger to this type of thinking as well. I mean, I like to pride myself in being like a free thinker, but I also have kind of knee jerk reactions depending on my tribe. I mean,
Mhm.
normal. I kind of feel like I've kind of run the just the game theory of the world, the utopian world that they think that, they want to live in, or, what the future would look like. And it's retarded. It doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work. It's bankrupt from the ground up.
Mhm.
Um, and I can't believe in it because, just do the math. Pull out a paper napkin, get your pencils and think about exactly what it is that you're proposing. It's absurd.
Yeah.
So,
Demographic
yeah,
winter.
I mean, uh, that doesn't deter many people. I don't know if yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's another another big thing, and this really is sad because, like I said, I'm don't necessarily want to say that my circle of friends represents, like, Romania at large. Romania still has relatively high, fertility rate compared to other higher than Hungary even. The
Oh.
wanted example, which is not much, but, quite a little bit. I think it's at 1.8 or 1.9 now, so close to 2. But almost none of the girls that I grew up with have children. Almost none. I mean, there were like 2 or 3 girls who got married right out of high school, who had children or tried to have children right then and there. But that was just like a very small minority, and they were kind of like freaks even then. Like, what the
Mm.
hell are these people doing?
Mhm.
Very religious people, Baptists actually, many of them Baptists. So yeah, they were kind of some sort of evangelical. But yeah, most it's either that or none, and that is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I see that in the United States too. You've either got, like, Ballerina Farm with her
Yeah,
7 children, and are you
I'm
familiar with
like,
this
yeah, yeah.
influencer?
I mean, her husband's like some heir.
Yeah, like a Mormon billionaire. I
Yeah,
think they're
yeah.
Mormon,
They
or
look Mormon in the
yeah.
best ways.
Yeah, I guess oh, yeah, now that I'm thinking, it's like it's either Ballerina Farm or, like, Lainey Molnar. Is that her
Oh
name?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
Exactly,
poor woman.
exactly. She's Hungarian as well, which is interesting.
Oh, wow.
Hmm. Yeah, so yeah, for the people who don't know what Ballerina Farm is, this is deep female lore. This is a Instagram account with this gorgeous woman. I think she used to be Miss Utah, who's married to this gorgeous man, and they have like a billion children on this picturesque farm where they sell, I don't know, homemade
Yeah,
sausages and stuff like that. And she posts videos of sourdough, and she cooks with like 7 babies strapped to her and stuff like that. But yeah, it's also, this is all enabled and helped by the fact that they are filthy rich and they
yes,
have
yes.
huge staff. who helped them on all of this.
Yes.
So anyway, it's an interesting situation. I mean, this is, life goals for many on the trad right. I think I wouldn't
Totally.
mind, like 10-person staff helping me with my sourdough.
Wouldn't it be
Um,
nice?
yeah, exactly. So yeah,
But it's funny too because she is sort of commodifying this identity, which, I suppose I'm a bit guilty of. I'm not even sure it's a bad thing. Actually, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, especially for our political, uh, or for my sort of political goals. Um, what are my political goals? I just would like to, um, through words or example, encourage women to pursue a way of life that is more conducive to happiness in the Aristotelian sense than what the current paradigm is offering. Um, so back to Ballerina Farm, like what she's doing, yes, she's sort of commodifying this identity, right? And I think Marxists might look at that skeptically, but she's also inspiring a lot of women to try these sort of things, to make the sourdough, to have the additional child, uh, to do like a sort of to question the seed oils, whatever it is, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we keep talking about aesthetics, we keep talking about elites, we keep talking about kind of power accumulating at the top. There's nothing better. I mean, this is essentially BAP for women. The ballerina farm. It's
Yeah,
this
totally,
is a stunning woman with a brood of 1,000 children, making everything from scratch. Yeah, it's aspirational, and this is kind of the sun cult that we should all be drifting towards.
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
so yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
all in.
vitalism. It is vitalism. That is what it
It
is
is
for sure.
vitalism, but it is also kind of interesting to note that, it's hard, really is hard. I mean, having, I don't know, she has like 6 or 7 or 8 children, like a lot of children, having that amount of children, keeping a home that is beautiful and picturesque, making everything from scratch, all of that stuff is possible, but there are sage hands in the back, helping with each spin of the ladle, with each wiping of the asses, just it's important to note that even Ballerina Farm is not an octopus. She does not have, multiple hands doing multiple things at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so it's just to bring us back, and I'm sure that some of the bodybuilders might enjoy the occasional anabolic supplement or
Oh,
something.
for
So
sure, for sure.
there might be stage hands helping.
Right, exactly, and they're making money too, I'm
Yeah, of
pretty sure. Yeah,
course.
Solbra needed to sell his book, and that's a good thing, and I support
Yeah.
him, and, and BAP in his own way. So,
No, I'm all in on the things that people are promoting, and
yeah.
yeah, I mean
Even
that's
though
that's
they would
life goals.
probably hate someone like me, I do
Doesn't
support them.
matter.
I really do. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
same
that
here.
yeah, it was such an interesting moment too, the whole BAP thing, and it was actually quite formative for me because, really what he identified as sort of lifelessness in the culture, this, sort of anti-vitality, the bugman world view, and that's really baked into the girl boss meme, the um, female striving sort of careerist fantasy, um, that has been a part of so many women's lives. Um, yeah, I mean the sort of like HR woman is the enemy of sort of Baptist figure, and she's my enemy too, to be honest. So
Yeah. Yeah, the inhabitants of the HR Longhouse. Yeah,
yes,
yeah, I agree, I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, I mean, just so many schisms and so much infighting. I just respect all the greats of the internet and people who've kind of built
Oh,
the
same.
dissident right, and
Same. Perhaps this is really womanly of me, but I really do see how everybody brings something different, and, yeah, this is, like, so kumbaya. I'm, like,
the
cringing as it's
Longhouse
coming
of
out of my
you.
mouth. No, but really, like, there's something interesting to find in every little piece, and I think that God can work through people without them being aware of it,
Mhm.
and, you know, that's beautiful, and it doesn't take away from anybody else's niche, so I
Yeah.
enjoy it, I enjoy it. I really shudder to ever be involved in any sort of, beef.
Yeah, I don't think it's healthy to be, saying any creating any beef in that space, to be honest.
Definitely not, definitely
It's
not.
just yeah, yeah. I mean, I've not been directly involved in beef, but yeah, people have, um, like, deduced that I might, and even that was was enough for a certain segment to get angry at me. It's just yeah, it doesn't matter. I respect the space. I am happy that they've built
Totally.
it. I'm, glad that I can
They did build the
yeah,
space. They
absolutely.
did, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, BAP's one person, Thomas 777 is also someone like that, and,
King.
Niccolo, just yeah, incredible posters, yeah,
Totally.
all my respect. Yeah, well, to round off this conversation, I will ask you the question of the show. Everyone gets asked this question. Who is the subversive thinker that you would like to recommend to our audience?
Wow, okay. You know, I should have anticipated this because I listened to your podcast, but okay, who's coming to mind? Edith Stein is coming to mind. Muriel Spark is coming to mind. Dorothy Sayers, Are Women Human, is coming to mind. Um, yeah, these are all women attempting to answer the woman question in ways that aren't totally, well, in ways that are interesting, I'll just say that.
Mhm. So no female annihilationism in these books or
Right. No, no, no. No, no, really, I mean, like, and I said this in my NatCon talk, and, you
which is
know
extremely good, by the way. Everyone, please do, read
oh,
and listen to the, NatCon talk.
thanks for saying that. I did cry, which I'm
Which
like,
is wonderful and touching
oh
and
god.
was, sorely missing at NatCon. So, I mean, yeah,
It's
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 important.
Thank you. It's so very womanly of me, but yeah, it's so hard for me to talk about Christ's mother Mary and not feel a lot of things. But it's sort of the missing piece in a lot of our world's political, discussions about women and the trad thing is like we just need to just look at Catholic history really, and look at who we love, and it can really shed some light on who we want to who should aim to strive to be like, and um, and so all of these women, Edith Stein, Muriel Spark, and Dorothy Sayers, I'm not sure if Dorothy Sayers is actually a Catholic or an Anglican, but they're all sort of getting at that in different sort of ways, in interesting ways.
Excellent. Yeah, no, definitely we, haven't had these, recommendations on haven't read any of them, so I will, yeah, I will look into it.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Helen. I appreciate you so much for coming on. I mean, I know this has also been a conversation that has been a long time coming. We've rescheduled this a few times, but I'm very happy that we finally made it happen. I'm very happy that I got to meet you in person and witness your wonderful family and your relationship with your husband, who's also a great guy. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Alex, for having me.